Next segment, we're very excited. I mean, everyone's been talking about this the entire week. To welcome Emmy-nominated costume designer Anne Crabtree. You have definitely seen her work on shows like Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale and HBO's Westworld. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
We are so glad to have you join us. You have like a lot of super fans here.
Uh-oh.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure. So, Emmy-nominated.
Yes, ma'am.
Was this did you even think that this would happen in your lifetime?
Never. I feel so bad I didn't bring you something like a handmaid's costume. Everyone's bringing you chocolate and greens, and I was like, oh, I didn't know.
No, you don't have to bring gifts. You are the gift. You're
Next
the treasure.
time, you will have a whole costume. It's really shocking. You know, I've done this for a really long time. I've done it for over 28 years. I come from a place in Kentucky where there's not yet a lot of costume designers or people in film. I think there's like 2 of us so far. Wow. And so it's not something I was expecting, and it's beautiful. It's really, this is probably the biggest moment so far in my career in terms of reaction and people loving the costume and wearing it at Comic-Con, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So when you were little, and obviously you weren't exposed to costume designers, like you said, it wasn't common in the place you grew up. When did you get this bug to become a costume designer?
I wonder when I got the bug. I certainly had heard about this one man who designed costumes. He was friends with Joan Crawford.
Wow.
He's from our hometown, and he was a set designer and costume designer, you know, in the 30s or something like that. So I did hear about it.
Golden era.
Yeah, beautiful era. Yeah. To experience that, you know, I think I was someone who studied painting and Shakespeare and thought I was going to become an artist. I did become an artist, but kind of round the way. And as a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist. So I know. But in a weird way, if you kind of push all that together, you get a costume designer by proxy because you have to research, you have to create foundations and unearth, you know, the people underneath, those actors who become the characters. And so, you know, I studied fashion in New York City and was heading in that direction. And I did that for a while. I worked for Elle magazine. And then slowly I started getting really into film from being here, and at a time in the 80s and 90s when there was really cool stuff happening, the Tarantinos and the Oliver Stones, and I could go on. I'm trying to think of women. Jane Campion, you know, and it was a moment when I've actually felt the shift, the attention to film.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Your costumes for The Handmaid's Tale have become part of pretty much the pop culture history. Wow. Were you surprised to see that kind of reaction?
Kind of. I mean, you know, I read the book 30 years ago and saw the film 25 years ago.
It's pretty faded in a way, isn't it?
God, no. I mean, I was so faded, you said?
No, faded.
Oh, fated. Yes, faded. Absolutely.
Sorry, it's my Jersey accent.
No, I love it. You know, it's cool. Margaret Atwood, who wrote the book, and Daniel Wilson, who produced the film, were both on our show as producers. So it was kind of this like return circle moment where I could thank them for inspiring me so long ago. You know, that was in people's consciousness, the story. I think that the idea that it's become this kind of pulp culture thing, it's a little lost on me now because I've only had like a month away from the well, actually a few more months than that, but I've only had a month off from work in like 3 years' time. So I'm literally getting back into the world and, you know, into the news and into life and Comic-Con and sort of seeing like, wow, people's reaction, their personal reaction to the show and to the costume.
You just hosted a masterclass about world building today for New York Comic-Con.
I did.
Like on the heels of it.
Yeah, like just seconds after I came here, and I was really nervous because you say Comic-Con and you think like 5,000 people are going to show up. It was filled, which was really exciting. And yeah, I mean, that's crazy, right? Like it's really abstract. How do you teach a class on world building? Yeah. It's such an unusual idea. Maybe that's the architectural, archaeological thing in me as well. Like, I think it's so fulfilling to have people in the audience who love the show, but somehow the costumes become this kind of extra layer for them. And I'm sincerely not sure how that happened, Diana. I think that, I don't know. They seem to take the costumes and make it their own for whatever reason. And I'm going to be judging at Comic-Con tomorrow some of the costumes, and 2 Handmaids showed up today, so that was pretty exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
When you mention about having to know the history of really just history in order to incorporate into costume design, what's interesting about Handmaid's Tale is that it's set in the near future, a time that hasn't happened yet. How did that influence your thoughts on what you envisioned for now what's iconic?
Yeah, thank you. So, it's supposed to be maybe 2 or 3 years in the future. And I kind of remember right at 1990 in the world of fashion, how we all were looking ahead to what's it going to look like in the year 2000. Some people in the clubs, right, where I was one of them, was going overboard, over the top into everything shiny and metallic and, cyborg-ish. Right. And then the rest of the world, the fashion world, was kind of going into this place of very extreme simplicity and beautiful, simple lines. I think of, early Prada and early Calvin Klein. We're kind of heading back there again.
Right, kind of modern.
So I applied that, like, look at what you're wearing. Like, those elements would be in The Handmaid's Tale because it's beautiful to the eye. Many people can relate to it. Many different bodies can wear it. And also, when you think of the future, at least when I do, I think of all the things that happened in eras from the 1900s till now that stand out in my mind, that have never changed, like really good design. And when that happens, I think of the 1900s, the 1930s. The jumpsuit I'm wearing is really industrial. It's Carhartt. But I love it because it's so clean. And you've seen something like this, which is hilarious. I didn't think about it till now. But in The Handmaid's Tale, any kind of beautiful, clean design will last through time. And it'll feel like the future, or it'll feel like the past. It'll always feel like both, in my mind.
So it's like a time fluid kind of design.
Yeah. I'm going to use that. Time fluid. I will. You are time fluid. Okay.
For closing, do you get really into Halloween costumes, being that you are a costume designer?
It's crazy. I'm embarrassed to say I don't. I used, oh God, it does. I used to go to the parades, like when I lived here, and I love dressing up and I love people getting crazy. It's so silly. I love the Day of the Dead, which happens right after, because there's this whole cultural thing in LA where I live now, Mexican culture that I really adore. I like people dressing up, but I never do it.
Even when you were younger? No?
I did, but I did really funny things that my mom, it always had to be made out of a pillowcase, whatever it was. So
was your mom's rule or your rule?
I guess it was hers. I don't know. But it was pillowcase. Yeah. I don't know.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on what's been a banner year for you. More success coming up.
Thank you.
I hope you'll join us again.
I would love it.
We didn't even get into Westworld.
Oh, yeah. Next time. That's a big one.
That's why we need a next one.
Thank you
so much.